basically will talk about cross product, that is the vector product of two vectors. Cross product is basically nothing but a vector product. So what is a vector product? A product, like in dot product, we just had calculations with the magnitude. There was no direction, and in the end, like the answer of your dot product will never have a I cap, j cap or a k cap with itself. It will be just a magnitude like 2, 3, 7, 8, x, y, z, but it will never have a direction. But the answer of a cross product will always have a direction with itself. For example, consider again those two vectors A and B, vector A and vector B. Now the cross product between them would be mod A, that is modulus of A, mod B, that is magnitude of B, into sine theta, which is again, theta is again the angle between A and B, and there will be an n cap with it, n cap being the direction. So basically it is a vector product. As we talk about cross product, we say it is a vector product, and we know that vectors are always associated with a magnitude and a direction. So n cap do have a direction with it. So now rearranging vector A in a particular direction and vector B again in a particular direction, and considering the angle between them to be theta, we can say that the n cap vector would be nothing but, how to determine the n cap vector, right? So n cap vector would be nothing but, if you curl your right hand fingers, all the 4 fingers, not the thumb, if you curl your all 4 fingers of the right hand, starting from index finger, from B towards A, the direction in which your thumb points gives the direction of n cap. So the basic rule of finding n cap is, curl your fingers of your right hand from B towards A, and the direction of your thumb will give the direction of n cap. So in this case, as we move our fingers from B towards A, our thumb points outward, that is towards us, out of the plane of this board. Alright. Similarly, if you curl your finger from A towards B, your thumb will point inward, that is into the plane of this board. So it will point the other way. If you curl your finger from B towards A, your thumb will point towards yourself. While when you curl your fingers from A towards B, your thumb will be pointing to the other side of the board. So it will be inward the plane, and from B to A it would be outward the plane. N cap can also be defined as A vector cross B vector by modulus of A vector into modulus of B vector. Now coming to some of its properties, I cap cross I cap would be 0. J cap cross J cap would be again 0. K cap cross K cap would again be 0. So when do we get a 1? I cap cross J cap would give K cap. How? Consider I cap, J cap and K cap in a cyclic way. So these arrows basically point the fact that whether your answer would be in positive or negative. As you move along with the arrow, your answer would always be positive. That is, I cap cross j cap would always give plus k cap. K cap cross I cap would always give j cap. And j cap cross k cap would always give I cap. But what if you move against the arrow, that is anti-clockwise? For clockwise, when you move clockwise, the answer is always positive. But when you move anti-clockwise, your answer would be always negative. That is, I cap cross k cap would always give minus j cap. K cap cross j cap would always give minus I cap. And j cap cross I cap would always give minus k cap. Now there is again a condensed way of expressing I cap cross j cap. Just as we did in dot product with delta function, now we'll do it with Levi-Civita tensor. So I cap cross j cap can be written as epsilon I j k and with a direction k cap. So what is this epsilon I j k? It is nothing but called Levi-Civita tensor. So epsilon I j k is nothing but it gives a 1 if I j k are all different and cyclic. So I'm just saying it, I have no space to write. Again it gives minus 1 if I j k are all different and anticyclic, and it gives a value of 0 if I j k are not different. That is, maybe I cap is repeating twice and then we get a j cap. Maybe I cap j cap, or I cap j cap, or k cap I cap, like this. So we basically get 9 components here. Now coming to some of the properties of the scalar product. We know that scalar products always follow commutative law, but vector product, that is cross product, do not follow commutative law. What is commutative law? Commutative law states that, so in scalar product we know that if A dot B is equal to something, then B vector dot A vector will also be equal to that thing. That is, A dot B gives the same value as B dot A. There is no change in anything, no change in the value of A dot B or B dot A. So it basically gives the same answer. While for if you try to find out the cross product of between A vector and B vector, that would again give a different result. So A vector cross B vector will be just equal but opposite. That is, will be equal to minus B vector cross A vector. So A vector cross B vector is equal to minus of B vector cross A vector, and not is equal. So they are not equal, they are equal but opposite. So you cannot say that A cross B follows commutative property, but then we can say that A dot B do follow commutative law. So how do we find out? There's another way of finding out A cross B if they are of the form, if A vector is of the form AX I cap plus AY j cap plus AZ k cap. And B vector is of the form bx I cap plus by j cap plus bz k cap. So what is the simple way of finding A cross B if A and B vector are expressed in this way in terms of components of I cap, j cap and k cap? Nothing, but just what we do is write A cross B is equals to I cap, j cap, k cap, and then write the coefficient of I cap. So Ax and Bx. What is the coefficient of j cap? Ay and By. And what is the coefficient of k cap? Az and Bz. So what will be the cross product between them? Nothing but I cap Ay Bz minus By Az plus j cap Az Bx minus Ax Bz plus k cap Ax By minus Bx Ay. So this is how you find out the cross product of two vectors if the vectors are expressed as components of I cap, j cap and k cap. What if they are not expressed as components and rather expressed as A and B vectors? So we have already found out that it will be equal to modulus of A, modulus of B, sine theta with a n cap. N cap is the direction. When you curl your fingers from A towards B, your thumb basically points out the direction of n cap. Now what does cross product physically represent? Like if two vectors are f and dr, for dot product f dot dr represents the amount of work done by the force. Now what does cross product between two vectors physically represent? So you have, if you have A here and if you have B here, then A cross B represents nothing but the parallelogram which can be made from this A and B. So it is basically area of the parallelogram. So it is basically A cross B is nothing but A B sine theta. So this is A. When I write A in this way, it means modulus of A, and this means modulus of B. That is only the magnitude of A, magnitude of B, and sine theta with the n cap. So what will be n cap in this sense? Because what we will do is we'll draw a parallelogram with this. Alright. So now what does n cap, how can we then, how can we then find the direction of n cap? like direction of the area of the parallelogram, it will be perpendicular to the plane always. So direction of area of the parallelogram, that is n cap, is nothing but it is a vector pointing perpendicular to this plane, the plane which contains the parallelogram. Alright. So area of this parallelogram is nothing but A cross B. Now coming to next important topic, collinear vectors. So what are collinear vectors? Collinear, as the name suggests, collinear, which means something which lies in the same line. So if 3 points 1, 2 and 3 or 2 vectors, so 3 points basically always will give you 2 vectors, vector 1 and vector 2. So if 3 points or 2 vectors lie in the same straight line, then they are called collinear. Also, lying in the same line, they won't make any area with themselves. So cross product between them should always be 0. How come? Let us name these points A, B and C. So we have vector AB and we have vector AC. So physically, what it means is area between vector AB and AC is 0. That is, there's no area between them. Then if there's no area between 2 vectors, then those 2 vectors are said to be collinear. And what does it mathematically imply? Mathematically it says that if the angle between them is 0, then the 2 vectors will be collinear. Why 0? Because we know that A cross B is nothing but modulus of A vector, modulus of B vector, sine theta n cap. Theta, what is theta? Theta is nothing but the angle between A and B, A vector and B vector. So if the angle between them is 0, sine 0 is 0. So the cross product basically turns into 0. So physically, for 2 vectors to be collinear, physically they will have to have no area between them, but mathematically they'll have to have an angle of 0 between them, and they are indeed having angle 0 between them. These 2 vectors, this red vector and blue vector, that is vector AB and vector AC, do they have any angle between them? They both are parallel vectors. So angle between any pair of parallel vector is 0. They point in the same direction. So angle between them is 0. So for collinear vector, AB cross AC should be equal to 0.